What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Dripping Creativity Podcast. I am your host, Chris Corvan, and today we have an exciting episode lined up for you as we dive deep into the creative world of George. How do you say your last name, George?
Sirois. I should have said that at the beginning.
I was going to ask before, but you know what? ADHD. All right, jumping right back in. George is a multi-talented writer, podcast, audiobook narrator, and audio drama director. From his international best-selling Excelsior series to his role as co-founder of the Once Upon a Podcast Network, George has been a guiding light for creatives everywhere. Today, we're going to explore his creative journey and all of that fun shit associated with. George, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. I've been watching everything you've been doing for your show. I've been really excited to potentially be a part of it, and here I am. So I'm really thrilled.
Hell yes, it's fantastic to have you on here. Not as fantastic doing the research because there's a lot of shit that you do, so
there's a lot. There is a lot.
It's like pulling together questions for this was like, okay, sure, this is going to be fun. You know what? Let's kind of jump right in with the writing there. So,
Sure.
Excelsior,
That's really where it all started.
Exactly. So, yeah. Excelsior is an international bestseller. What kind of it inspired the series to begin with?
The series is the story of a character that I created back in 1992, and this character was the result of wanting to create a new character that was part of a little universe that I had created with some friends back in 85. So we're going way back. And we were basically just kind of putting together these characters just to pass the time in between assignments at school. And I had so much fun doing those that when I moved to a different school and then eventually to a different state, I just kept on picking at them. So I just knew there was something there. There was definitely not much there in terms of their original look. They were very boxy looking robots. So it was just like square, rectangle, some more rectangles, some very thin rectangles, and there they were. And it was just really very kind of cheesy names attached to them. And there wasn't anything there yet, but it was just a matter of just kind of like, just keep on chipping away at these and eventually something's going to crack. And sure enough, when I was in summer school of all places for English, I just did not jibe well with my English teacher, and thankfully my English teacher in 1992 in summer school was terrific. And one of the things that we touched on was King Arthur, and we brought in we were shown as a frame of reference the 1981 John Boorman movie Excalibur, the PG version. I have to stress, the PG version was what we were shown in summer school. And I was so taken by it now, and it's become one of my favorite films of all time. I was just like, I need to have a character like this. He's got to be like someone at the center of this universe. He's got to be someone new, but he's going to be like a legend, a myth. He's definitely going to have a sword, and he's going to be like this god in human form, and just like coming up with all these different things. And eventually I settled on 3 points of reference for him. He was going to be sticking in a blender would be Jesus Christ, King Arthur, and Optimus Prime, and hit puree. And they wound up getting the original essence of what I eventually would call Excelsior. And that was just a word that I really connected with. I was from New York, so I had that on the state flag. Star Trek fan, so I knew that from Star Trek 3, 4, and 6. Marvel Comics fan, so of course I knew Stan Lee would always end with Excelsior. And so much fun, with that. It was just like, that word just really means something to me. So kept on working at that, and eventually kind of created that whole storyline and his whole origin story, really. And the essence of that origin story stayed there in 2008 when I wrote the first draft of what would become the novel. And it's gone through a lot of different changes since then. And in 2017, when it got picked up by Aloris Publishing, which unfortunately is no longer active, but at the same time, another publisher came in and scooped it up, and they're looking forward to releasing it once book 3 is finished. Because books 1 and 2 are all done. I'm working on part 3, and they said, great, once part 3 is done, then we can go ahead and put it in the rotation, in the on the printing queue. So they have big plans for it. I am thrilled with that, and so of course I'm going to do my very best for them. So it's been a great run so far with this character, and I just can't wait to see what's next for him. So
excellent. So then when it came to turning the first book into a trilogy, was it something that you kind of knew right away you were going to do 3, or did it just kind of keep expanding into a third?
3 seemed to be like the ideal number for it. And when I was in high school, originally I was just using this character just as like a little comic strip character. But then as the stories got more and more intricate and my artistic skills stayed where they were, which was next to nothing, I just decided to shift it over to prose. And so I was filling up my steno notebooks with all these different stories that are dealing with different characters from this. And one fun thing that I would do to get my friends and classmates interested in these stories, I would incorporate them into them. So they wouldn't be the lead characters. They would be like the best friend of this person, or the significant other of this person. And so that got them wanting to read it to find out what happened to them. And then I kind of Trojan horsed my own little mythology in there. And that really got them excited because they got to see how everything kind of mixed together. So originally it was going to be a trilogy, and I knew what part 1 was going to be. It was going to be, introducing the character, getting him acquainted with everything, basically finding a way to make him reborn through the main character, as you will. And then the second one was going to be, okay, now he's got to face his past. Now he's got to deal with a character that's kind of been haunting him for so long, is real, like his arch enemy, if you will. And then part 3 was going to be something else. And part 3, I never wrote that story. I never wrote that whole story from start to finish. It was always just like a handful of wouldn't this be cool moments, but I knew what I wanted to do with it. So I've kept that sense of that idea of that story, and that's been with me for 30 years now. And so that's the fun part now, is actually getting to realize that story. And the more I'm working on it, the more I'm incorporating other elements that tie into what has already come out in parts 1 and 2. And so it's making it really fun. And when the big twists happen, like the parts that really had me wanting to tell this story in the first place, once they start coming up, then I feel like that's when the book is really going to flow.
It sounds like it's going to be a pretty epic adventure. It especially just kind of the journey getting here. I think that's fantastic. I love that. I love that kind of long draw of everything falling into place and building it as you go. That's
exactly.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's like magic. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
So then let's kind of move on to From Parts Unknown.
Yes.
So sports and science fiction.
It's not new. I mean, that goes. We've seen that in many years before this. One of my favorites from the 1970s is the film Rollerball from 1975, and when I finally saw that movie, I want to say like around the year 2000 or so, that's when I knew that it was just like, oh, I have something here with From Parts Unknown. It had gone through many different, a handful of different names at that point. But when I started writing the actual novel of what would it be, that's when I decided it was going to be called From Parts Unknown. And originally it was an idea for a video game. That was where it would be. My friends and I having started college in 1994. The big thing was when you have a friend that's got the Super Nintendo, they're gonna have Mortal Kombat 2. So, and when that happens, there's your Friday night right there. So you and your friends are gonna play Mortal Kombat 2 quite a while, and go downstairs to the little deli, right next door, and see if you can get some beer and everything. Come on back up and play some Mortal Kombat 2, play some cards, whatever. Go across the street, get some pizza, then go a few blocks up the street, and go to the bar where You got friends that are, classmates that are bouncing, outside that particular bar. You got another friend behind the bar that's, making sure you're all set. It was a good time during that freshman year. And it was, but one of those times, in 1995, I had just finished up watching an episode of Wrestling Challenge. And it was during this period of time where the Undertaker's urn had been stolen by IRS and Ted DiBiase and everyone. So it was building up toward a WrestleMania 11 match with King Kong Bundy. And so I remembered watching this particular Wrestling Challenge match, and he was going up against this regular jobber guy. And Undertaker quickly, he walked up to him, choke slam, tombstone, 1, 2, 3, and that was it. It was just like, oh, okay. And then sticks him in a body bag. And it was just like, oh, he's going back to back to when he first started doing that. And it was, getting a little darker there. So finished that one episode, and I took a walk, and I remember I was on Amsterdam Avenue when it hit me. I was just like, how interesting would it be if that was all in reality? These over-the-top characters, these over-the-top situations, but that was not part of a show, but it was part of what just went on in the ring. And it was just a normal everyday sort of thing. What would that be like? And then I started thinking well, there would definitely be a very interesting battle behind the scenes for control over this whole company. And something like that would be, and just started just kind of picking at it a little bit more and more and more. And then finally it was just I had something, but I didn't know what. And so I wrote it out, and it was just about 3 paragraphs. And then a few years later, I decided it was going to be a video game idea. And so I wrote that out, and it seemed like it would be a lot of fun. It would be a character looking to be a part of the last remaining sport in America, this promotion. And he gets injected with this serum that turns him into this monster of a man, and tears his way through the ranks and faces the champion and beats him and is about to kill him. He looks out in the stands, and he sees his wife, and it kind of reminds him of who he was. He turns on his creators, and now all of a sudden he's got to go all the way back down to the bottom of the ranks and work his way back up to face the guy who actually put him in the situation in the first place. And that was all I had. And then the next year I was bored, and I thought, well, let's see how it is as a treatment for a script. And it was around that point that I'd kind of gotten, shaken some rust off. I had graduated from college, and I was bored. I wanted to do something, so I actually wrote a spec script for a Batman sequel. And this was around the time when Batman and Robin came out, so that was all we had to work with. I was like, we are not ending this series this way. And so I had an idea to kind of come up with something else to basically kind of at least end the series on a better note than that. And then take some shots of Batman and Robin along the way, but bring it back to what it should be, and have some fun doing it. And so I wrote that script in about 6 weeks, and it felt good getting the rust off like that. And I was well, let's see how this video game concept looks as a treatment for a script. And I wrote that. Let's see how it is as a script. And I wrote 10, 12 drafts of that. And one of them actually wound up getting some notice at a film festival in 2000. And then I decided in 2001 I was going to write the novelization of that script and see where it went. And came out in 2002, and friends and family, they got it, and then it just kind of drifted off. And I got the rights back in 2011. I looked back at it, and I was I don't like this anymore. I love the concept, love the story, love the characters, but I hoped that I was a better writer by that point. And so I took, several months, and any idea that I wanted to put into it, I went ahead and did it. And that wound up leading me to starting it up again in September of 2011, after my wife and I made the move here to St. Louis. And I was working on that for years, and it got to a point where I realized like this could be something, it's going to be something bigger than what it was, but I didn't want to just drop a big brick in front of people and just say, here, read this. So I decided I was going to break it up and it became a 5-part serial. And, you know, having grown up in the 80s and all of the big event season premiere episodes for G.I. Joe and Transformers, they were all these 5-part miniseries. So that was my inspiration for that. And that was a whole lot of fun, figuring out where each one would start, where they would end. And it was a blast doing that. I had so much fun.
And you know what? That's another fantastic and interesting journey all the way through. Before I dive into that shit, though, I just wanted to say, I was going to interrupt you there to say this was in New York. And then I realized everything you described is everything you would tell somebody and they would know instantly it was New York.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Go downstairs for a pizza. Go downstairs. Go downstairs. It's like, yeah, no, that's. I'm Canadian.
That's the Upper West Side.
And it was New York
that was
to
the
me.
Upper West Side. Yeah.
That was.
I had my dorm room at that time. My first 2 years in college, it was on 77th and Broadway, and you couldn't in the mid 90s. You couldn't ask for a better spot than that. Like, it was fantastic. You had Big Nick's right across the street, some of the best pizza you would have. And then about 4 or 5 blocks from where you were, you go right into the Zoo Bar that was there. And a few blocks up further there is the 86th Street movie theater, where I saw Natural Born Killers there for the first time. If you want to go like 10 blocks down that way, you go to the Lincoln Square Theater over, and it was just great. Yeah. It was just a wonderful experience to really kind of figure out exactly what the hell I was going to do with myself. So
before kind of wrapping this section up, because we got like 10 sections.
Sorry.
No worries. I love it. In the move from New York there to Missouri, after like say a year or so, when you're looking at your creations and all that, did you notice a shift in your storytelling and in the characters you were creating? Like, did you notice a shift based on where you were living?
Somewhat, because mainly when it came to Excelsior, I realized how much it felt like I was kind of telling my own story. That it was, you know, like my destiny is going to lead me over here when I thought it was going to lead me over here. And it turns out it couldn't have been a better turn by coming over here. I felt like I was able to take advantage of the opportunities that were here in ways that I would not have been able to take advantage of those if they were in New York City. Because if they were in New York City, then they would have been swallowed up by everyone else. And so by being here in St. Louis, I was able to kind of like carve a little niche out for myself and realize like, hey, there's a pretty amazing community of creatives that are here. And there are some really good people that are here. I want to be affiliated with them. And all of a sudden it was just like, oh, what's this? The Missouri Writers Guild. And once I wind up, once Excelsior finds its way to a small press, then all of a sudden I am eligible to join the guild as a member. And then a few years later, that was when my publisher at the time just happened to have been president of the Missouri Writers Guild. And I basically said to her that if she needs any help on the board, you know, just let me know. Famous last words, because maybe about a week or two later was the annual conference for the guild. And I didn't go. I wasn't able to go. It was over in Kansas City. And I'm just sitting on the couch at home watching a movie. And I look over on my Facebook and I get a message from a friend saying, congratulations. I was like, thank you. For what? And he goes, you don't know? And I was like, no, what? What is going on? And I check my email, and there's an email from the president saying, "Congrats, Mr. VP." It's like,
that's like, one way to find out. That's
okay.
definitely one way to find out.
Oh yeah, yep. And that was an experience unto itself. That was the beginning of 2 very volatile and very educational years at the top of the Missouri Writers Guild, and first as VP and then as president from 2017 to 2018. But that was a very interesting experience. Not only getting to chair a conference, but then getting to chair another one the very next year, and it was one of those things that I did not expect to do, but at the same time, it led me to the person who would wind up becoming my literary agent. So it's pretty amazing how those sort of things kind of fall into place, but that's what it did.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like, kind of sticking with the guild here, going into that as you did, were there specific things you were looking to accomplish while you were there? Was it more of a cleanup thing? What was kind of your overall goal and approach when looking at the Writers Guild there in Missouri?
I really just wanted to expand it. I wanted to see about the possibility of expanding its awareness, and letting more people really know about it. And there was talk about a lot of people just kind of letting politics kind of get in the way of things, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep open channels of communication between the main guild, which is what I was president of, and all the smaller chapters that came out as a result of that, and just kind of regain communication with them, because it felt like everyone had just kind of scattered and was doing their own thing. I wanted to really kind of connect with everyone and see what we could do as the guild to help them out. And we wound up hitting a snag when I got the bill for the 2017 conference, and we wound up, but there were a lot of elements that were kind of playing against us in that. But it was, thankfully my VP came up with a great idea, and between that and the trivia night that I was able to spearhead earlier that year, we were able to get ourselves out of that hole, and thankfully, and at the same time, he was going to be co-chairing the conference with me, and he came up with a really great, much smaller, condensed version of the conference that wound up being very suitable for what it was that we were doing. And at the end of that, I was thrilled to see that we were in the black, and I was able to pass the reins off to the next president, and I was thrilled. I was just like, okay, we kept it going, we kept it up, we kept everything afloat. It did not die on my watch. And it wound up becoming something really special when I was approached by another writer who lived in Hannibal, and let me know that, hey, Hannibal does not have its own Writers Guild, and I was able to get that going. It's the birthplace of Mark Twain. That's got to have its own. It's got to have its own guild, and thankfully, on my watch, I'm proud to say that the Hannibal Writers Guild is not only started, but is still flourishing right now. So I'm thrilled with it, and I'm proud of the time that I was there.
So, do you, from your internal and then as actually leading the Writers Guild, would you say it's something valuable for kind of all writers to kind of get into? Like, there's a lot of humming and hawing when it comes to writers guilds and paying the dues and all that shit. Is there value in there for, say, the random indie writer?
I would say there's more value for the random indie than anyone, because when it comes to writing is such a solitary thing. At the end of the day, it's you, your thoughts, and whatever apparatus you're using to get these stories out. So whether it's just a pad and pen, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's your desktop, whatever it is, whatever you're doing to get the story out, just get it out. And we writers just always feel alone when it comes to that, because we have to be like I said, at the end of the day, it's just us and whatever it is we're doing to get our stories out. So we got to make sure that we are that we have people around us that understand what we're going through, that connect with us because of what we're doing. and appreciate what we're doing, because there are a lot of people that appreciate the work that comes out of it. They love going to the bookstore. They love going ahead and finding the latest work by someone like Colleen Hoover, or Stephen King, or anyone, and just getting that. But at the same time, those books are there as a result of just a constant battle within, and always asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? Is this worth it? Is this story worth telling? Am I the one to tell it? And we've always just flood ourselves with so many different things. We deal with so many underlying issues: anxiety, depression, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, procrastination, self-doubt, fatigue. God help me, fatigue. And it's all there. It's all just kind of bottled up within us. And if we don't let that out, if we don't let that other people see, like, this is tearing me apart, and you need to have someone that's there to say, like, oh, I get you, it's tearing me apart too. And it's very easy to talk up someone else, but not as much to yourself. We're the ones that are notorious for not taking our own advice. So I can say to a fellow author, oh, if you're stuck, try doing this, and this. Oh, just so happens that I'm stuck. Well, why aren't you doing that? Just so it's that constant, that constant thing, that constant back and forth.
For sure, that's something we've talked about before on this podcast. Because it's definitely a struggle. So having a guild behind you, having places to kind of not only just find things to utilize, but find other ways to change your own perception on things with other people, other like-minded people, I think is fantastic. I have way too many guilds that I have to become a part of right now. It's ridiculous. But anyways, all right, let's kind of tweak this one, still staying in the literary world, but moving over into audiobooks, because you have narrated audiobooks across various genres. How do you approach differentiating between your stuff and someone else's stuff, or do you just kind of use one specific voice? Talk to me about your process.
I'm always thrilled whenever anyone asks me to bring their books to life. I'm very flattered for it. It's something that I do not take lightly, and it's something that I want to make sure that I deliver for them. I found that when it comes to narrating my own books, that's what kind of got me started. I started it because in 2015, I had lost my admin job, and I was wondering what I'm going to do next. And I just happened to have found the documentary that John DiMaggio did called "I Know That Voice." Terrific documentary. If anyone is curious about it, highly, highly recommended. And it's basically John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender from Futurama and many other things. He basically just kind of pulled back the curtain and let all of these amazingly talented voice actors kind of tell their stories. And I realized, I've been wanting to do that for pretty much all my life. I've always loved animation. I've always loved being on the radio. I've loved, doing things with my voice. I love being able to tell a story. And so I reached out to Twitter, and I asked if anyone is in the St. Louis area, but they know of any place that does lessons for voice, any voice lessons in the studio. And thankfully, someone chimed in and said, look up Clayton Studios on Big Bend. And I had passed by there many times on the way to work, and I reached out to them the next day, and I asked them, can you tell me about your program? And they told me the program, and then they told me the price. I was like, oh, okay. Not in a position where I can just go ahead and put that down right away, especially since I just lost my job. I got a nice severance and everything, but at the same time, it's like, I don't feel right just going ahead and doing that. And so I decided I was going to make a Kickstarter campaign. And so I said to all of my fellow authors, I said that for $10, I will narrate 500 words for you. For $20, I'll narrate 1,000 words. And you can take that audio file and do whatever you like with it. Go ahead and use it to promote yourself, use it to promote your books, whatever you need to do. And I wound up raising the money for it. And wound up, showing up and, doing those pieces for everyone. One person just had like a handful of poems that he asked to narrate. I was just like, absolutely. One person had a short story. There are a couple of people that I'm still waiting to get the materials from and just kind of decide which one they want to do, so I can go ahead and make good on that. And overall, though, I was just absolutely floored that I was able to raise the money for it, and they were all terrific, and I'm very, very grateful to them. And when I told the studio, it's like, okay, I got the money, when do we start? And they're like, well, here's the thing. We only really start up the program when we have about 3 or 4 people that are lined up to do it. Right now, you're the only one who's asking about it. I was like, well, I'm doing these interviews for this company, and it's looking like I may be getting the job. So if it's going to happen, it's got to happen at this point, because I'm not going to have the time to do it if I'm getting this other full-time job. And so they said, well, let me talk to the teacher. So they reached out to the teacher, a gentleman named Jim Singer, very well accomplished commercial voice actor. And they came back to me and said, Jim's going to teach you for free. Well, Jim's going to teach you one-on-one. I was like, fabulous. And the day that I recorded my demos, I did a commercial demo and an animation demo. And just so happens that I was in and out of the studio after doing both after only 45 minutes. And because I just knew what I wanted to do with it. The very next day was my first day at that job. And they even had, during the time that I was there for just over 2 years, but they had an education program where they had like a bunch of different PowerPoint presentations. And so they put those together and they asked me to voice them. And so I got to add to my, not so much my portfolio because it was all internal stuff, but Jim told me during my lessons that like, that's where you're really gonna thrive, is doing those in-house internal presentations. You're gonna do really well with those. And I did for the most part, like over there. But it was the next year that's when I pitched an idea to my publisher about narrating an audiobook of Excelsior. And I went ahead and did that. I did the first chapter. She gave me the green light to go ahead and do the rest. Had a lot of fun with it, and learned a good amount of how to do it and how not to do it. And wound up being so much fun. That's when I opened up the floor to accepting some more royalty share options, offerings from other writers, so that way they wouldn't have to put any money down. And after a few of those and, kind of building up my portfolio a little bit, I decided I was going to step away from that and just do paid work only. And thankfully, I got some great clients that have been keeping me going. And even though it's become very much like the side job, that money has definitely been put to good use.
Oh, definitely. Like it's if you are able to do that type of work, it's the type of thing that as long as you're pushing it, it's going to keep returning, and is a fantastic side gig, without a doubt there. All right, we're at half an hour. We're getting there. All right, we're going to move into the podcast now. I think what we're actually going to have to do later is do a specific episode for Parts Unknown. I'll have you come back and we'll actually do a full promotional conversation about that one. I've been doing some for other authors and musicians, so I think we'll do that for that one, just because I want to give that some dedicated time.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about your podcast. All right, so you have two. You have Excelsior's Journeys and From Duck Till Dark.
Yeah, from
Outside
dusk
the
till
Mar-
dark outside the Marvel Studios.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, did I spell that wrong? Shit.
No.
How did you end up getting started with these two things, and what keeps you going?
Well, in 2016, I was actually a guest on a show that's no longer active now, but it was a blast, called the Right Pack Radio. And it was basically like a roundtable discussion with a bunch of different writers in the St. Louis area. And we would all just kind of share our thoughts about various topics. And I was there as a guest to talk about audiobooks. And it wound up being such a good time. And since I already knew everyone, that was when David Lucas, the producer of it, basically said, like, show of hands of anyone who's okay with having George become a member of the Right Pack. And everyone raised their hand. So it's just like, so now all of a sudden, that became like a Sunday afternoon thing, just showing up and participating in this great discussion, always a different topic each week. It was a lot of fun. And then it got to a point where I was just like, I'm having so much fun with this. I feel like I'm kind of feeling the urge to start my own show. And this was back in summer of 2018. And I had no idea what I was going to call it. But at the same time, I knew that it was going to be an interview show. And it was inspired by all of my Facebook friends who I had both known just from Facebook and from real life, and from people that have gone all the way back to grade school with me. And I was like, this is so much fun, getting to see like all these different creative people throughout the years, and they're doing their thing, but at the same time they're sticking to their responsibilities, and they need to be celebrated. They need to be on a podcast. They need the world to know who they are. And after a little while, it became, okay, they need to be on my podcast. But then it was like, well, what am I going to call it? And I was throwing one name after another, just trying to think of like something that stuck. And I was talking about it to David, and from the Right Pack, and he just like looks over my shoulder, because we were at a convention, and I was selling my books, and I had a big banner for Excelsior, and he just like looks over my shoulder, and he sees it on the cover of the first Excelsior book. It says underneath the title, Part 1 in the Excelsior Journey. So he just points at that and just goes like, why don't you call it the Excelsior Journey? And I looked at that, I was like, that works. But I'll tweak it a little bit. It'll be Excelsior Journeys, so that way everyone's got their own. And then I just kind of defined what an Excelsior journey is. And that's someone who is basically like doing a creative venture and pushing through no matter what, not letting anything stop them. And basically, knowing that there is a burning desire within them to share their creativity with the rest of the world. So it's a very positive kind of feel to them. And there's so many people that I've gotten to know, not only through my own Facebook friends, but a lot of other people that have reached out to be guests on the show. And I have to say, if anyone wants to find guests, you definitely got to go on Podmatch, because that's where like I've gotten just a slew of different guests that I wouldn't have known, that I wouldn't have connected with if they hadn't reached out to me there. But there are so many people that are always not only doing their part to reach their own creative dreams, but are constantly looking behind them, so that way they can help out other people that are in the same boat that they were in before. So they're doing their part to not only get themselves up to a higher level, but are always reaching out a hand to get someone else to share that same success with them. So it's something that has really blown my mind, and it's something that I've seen very consistently in almost 300 episodes now. So it's this October actually is going to be 6 years that I've been doing the show. I've had so much fun doing it. And I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. But then in 2018, that was when I discovered that something called the National Podcast Post-Month Challenge. And that happens every November, same month as National Novel Writing Month. And it basically does like something along the same lines. with National Podcast Post Month Challenge, you are creating, editing, and posting an episode of a podcast every day for 30 days. So by the end of November, you got 30 episodes. And the first time I did it, it was very kind of stream of consciousness, and I wasn't really thrilled with it. But the next year I was saying, like, I gotta have a theme to this one. And I started thinking about the all the different Marvel movies that have paved the way for what we now had at this golden age. And I had just gotten the Blu-ray for Avengers Endgame, and I was thinking, like, wow, this genre has really come so far, and in such a long period of time, that all those movies that had come before it, they need to be celebrated. And so I was thinking, like, wow, this would be a lot of fun to kind of go back and talk about all the different Marvel movies that were not part of the MCU and really put the focus on that. And so originally it was just going to be called Outside the Marvel Studios. That's all it was going to be. And I pitched it to one of my friends from college, who is a huge comic book aficionado, so I knew he would appreciate it. And he asked me, like, what sort of range are you going for? And I said, well, I'm going to start all the way back in 1986 with Howard the Duck, and I'm going to take it all the way to 2019 with Dark Phoenix. Like, I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to go from Duck till Dark. And he goes, there's your title. And so that year, I recorded basically the first draft of what would be From Duck Till Dark. And I had a lot of fun doing that first draft, but I was doing it directly onto the Anchor app, just on my phone. So the quality was not there. It was definitely not there. But I wanted to kind of go back to it and see, like, a couple years later, I was like, you know what? I really enjoy doing that, but I want to do it right. So I took all those episodes down and I listened to them again just to kind of get a little bit of an idea of what I was going to do for each episode, and then added to them by recording every single one of them here in my studio at home, and put together an opening theme, put together an outro, and just really made it seem like it was a professional, as close to a professional as possible, just to make it look like I knew what I was doing. And then I recorded it that way, and that became what it eventually is now. It wound up going a little bit further than 30 days because I had about 35 films to work with. But I've been throwing around the possibility of bringing it back, especially now that we've gotten so much more, so many more Marvel movies that are not part of the MCU, and then ones that are incorporating those other elements, like Spider-Man: No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, they're going back and they're realizing, like, hey, you're right, they need to be celebrated, and so let's have some fun with this. And it's led to some really fun things. Like the Spider-Man episode that I did for the 2002 film was my favorite one out of all of them, because I'm a sucker for behind the scenes stories, and that one has so many twists and turns that, and I didn't even realize it until I was doing the research, but they tie in so well with what would become the 2006 Casino Royale, because they were basically just like kind of doing their own thing, trying to like become known and everything. And then the last step was switching studios, and that all of a sudden opened things up. And then all of a sudden, oh, both of these movies can now become a reality. And it was great. It was great to research that. It was great to find out more about it. And it was a lot of fun to talk about it. It was like, it goes into like about almost 20 minutes before I even go into talking about the actual movie. So that was a lot of fun.
Excellent. I will definitely be checking that one out for sure. And as everyone will know, all the shit down in the description. Just click the links, man. You know where they are. All right. So we could keep talking about all of this shit forever, but we do have to eventually wrap. So we're going to move into the rapid fire that are never actually rapid fire. Have a second, take a drink, enjoy yourself. It's all right.
Like I'll do that too.
Yeah, prepare yourself. Stretch it out, Will I cut this section out? Who knows?
Hey.
I'm crazy, man. You never know.
Whatever works, right?
All right. Question number 1. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Good man.
Used to be tea when I was a kid, but when I got my first full-time job, I tried coffee for the first time and I was like, ooh, this is it.
Favorite, you know what? It wasn't going to be one thing, but we're going to change it up there. If you had to remove one property from Marvel, what are you taking out?
One property from Marvel. Oh man.
Gone. You're axing it.
That is a tough one. I can't really think of it too much, because I know that, like as soon as I say something, then that's going to be like, well, if you take that out, then that's gonna
That's
invalidate this and this and this and this. So I would say, like, to hell with it. I would just say, like, let's see what it's like without the new universe. Like, there you go. It's like, I'm gonna just take away something very obscure and see what winds up happening there, because I really can't think of anything that if you were to take it out wouldn't mess with something else in the universe, because everything is so intricately woven within that.
Eternals isn't that much yet. You could probably axe Eternals and get away with it.
Probably. Like,
okay.
Or the Inhumans, I would say. That was based on their translation to the big screen, or to the very short-lived IMAX screening, if you will. Like that was,
they tried. They tried.
It's but I mean, any franchise that's going to go through this through this long,
exactly,
definitely needed to do it. I would say, like, if I was going to remove like any one film, it would probably be X-Men Origins Wolverine.
How dare you, sir?
No, I will not. I will not say, because first of all, like, I mean, they kind of did that already themselves. They retconned so much of it out of existence. So I feel like if they were to do that, it would basically just be what it is. It's confined itself to being a Marvel one-shot. So
well, I mean, technically, just with how Fox was running the X-Men there. Anyways, we can go on an entire tangent for that. We'll skip that. We'll skip that. Save that for another day.
There you go.
Okay. If you could have narrated any audiobook for any book throughout history, any one of them, what book do you want to be known for? As like, oh, you're the voice of this book.
Oh, The Stand.
Ooh.
Stephen King's The Stand. I would love to do that.
Man, that's a big,
it's
a tall ask.
It's a mountain of a book, but to be the guy who does that, because I mean, I don't like to tear other people down, but at the same time, I would have narrated a little bit differently.
There are certain narrators out there where you're just like, I can't listen to this book,
right?
And that's a problem.
And for me, it just kind of goes against the style that I've built, because I like to have high energy. I like to have some rapid fire in what I'm saying. I want to get caught up in it. I want to perform it, and I don't want to just read it. And for that to have the opportunity to perform The Stand, sign me up.
It's a solid choice. It's a solid choice. Okay, now this is going to be a two-parter. Number one, sell me the Excelsior series in 3 words.
3 words?
Words.
Okay. Interplanetary King Arthur.
That's pretty solid. I'll take that. Now we're going to flip this one over for from parts unknown, and we're going to say, give me 1 sentence. Sell me the book. Got to keep you on your toes.
Welcome to the future of sports entertainment.
That's a solid line. I'm pretty sure it's copywritten somewhere. Let's see here. Best piece of advice you ever received, and this can go for any one of the industries you touch.
Give yourself permission to write crap.
Love it. That's a solid line. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any podcast or audiobook that you just can't live without?
As in someone else's?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I love a good movie review podcast, and for me, the Now Playing podcast by Venganza Media, that to me is right up there. That's something that I've constantly gone to for repeat listens, and it's just so much fun, even though there are quite a few movies that I would disagree with on their final analysis. But that's what makes this whole wonderful love of film. It's part of it. It's those debates, those discussions that go with it, and that's something I truly cherish. And those guys do a hell of a job putting that show together every single week.
Perfect. We'll take that one. And now, the most important question before we close out the main show here. Where can people find you and your books?
You can find me at I guess I'm trying to reincorporate my website, which is he'sgotit.com, because my the company that I gave myself, the company name I gave myself, is simply By George He's Got It. And I just happened to have looked online, and no one had gotten he'sgotit.com. So it's like, I do now. And so that became my home base, and I'm in the process of kind of not only working on that, but also putting together a Substack, so that way I can share more news, and also finally putting together that newsletter that I really, really, really hope will take off this time. And so that way I can share more news about the podcast and about all the other projects that I got going. Because, as you know, there are a lot of irons in this fire. So
perfect. And online, social media, where are you at?
I'm at Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads. Those are the three places where you can find me. So just think fit. And Facebook, Instagram, Threads. There you go.
And your books are available on?
Books are not available as of yet because they're in the process of getting ready to come out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember.
Yep. Yeah, but they're all in the process of coming out. They're going to be coming out through Ronan Weatherford. From Parts Unknown is scheduled to come out in 2025, and hopefully I'll have Excelsior. I'll have the third part, Greater Glory, finished, so that Excelsior, Ever Upward, and Greater Glory can find themselves out and reaching the masses once again in probably 2026. We'll see.
Freaking awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for this main show. Stay right there. We're going to get to the off the record stuff. As for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. If you are part of the Creative Coffee Cafe community or a member of our Patreon, stay tuned for the off the record segment. As for everyone else, we'll see you next time. Stay creative, stay inspired, and I'll see you soon.